on this Friday Eve. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, I'm Molly Karen. We got a lot to get into today.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Let's do it.
Friday Eve. This is your cultural contribution.
It is. The little I can do. Let's get right into it. Grayson Allen, the story last night. He received the second technical foul of his collegiate career following his third tripping/kicking incident, I'll call it, in a year. First against Louisville, then Florida State, and last night versus Elon. He became overly emotional on the bench after finding out about the technical after the incident. He sat the final 4:15 of the first half and did not start the second half. Here's Grayson.
I made a really bad play. Sorry to him, Santa Ana. Sorry to the officials who have to call that. Sorry to my team because it's selfish and taken away from them. I'm not proud of it at all. Afterwards, I just wanted to make sure I apologize to him. I mean, I don't plan on doing it again. But I made another mistake and to try to be better again, just like I tried to be better for past years.
So in the aftermath, Coach K released the following statement this morning. We've had the opportunity to thoroughly review the incident involving Grayson Allen from last night's game against Elon. As I stated last night, the incident was unacceptable and inexcusable. He took an important step last night by apologizing in person to Stephen Santa Ana and Coach Matt Matheny. As a program, we need to take further steps regarding his actions that do not meet the standards of Duke basketball. To that end, we have determined that Grayson will be suspended from competition for an indefinite amount of time. Stephen A., how long should this suspension be?
Well, I agree with my man Jay Williams. For our college basketball coverage, who does an outstanding job for us. By the way, was a bad boy, Wooden Award winner, player of the year, big time player, Jay Williams.
Yep.
I totally agree with him. Minimum 5 games. You have to do this. I'm not going to sit up here and excoriate a kid. He's a kid. He's a young man. At the same time, we wouldn't make excuses for anybody else. Let's not try here. This kid seems out of control. It wasn't just the incident itself. When he went to the bench, he seems like there's something missing. There's something wrong. And I'm the kind of person that you look at things from afar, you see what you see, you call it like you see it. But at the same time, when you communicate with people or those close to them and you get some insight, Max, into who they are and how they think and what they endure, you try to harbor an elevated level of sensitivity. I've spoken to J.J. Redick of the Clippers about this kid because J.J. Redick came to his defense a few months ago when he made this mistake last year. And I respect the hell out of J.J. Redick. He's a fantastic player, was feisty, had an attitude. Duke walks into a stadium when he started at Duke. People throwing stuff at you, people saying all types of stuff from you. It gets your competitive juices and adrenaline flowing. We get all of that. But J.J. Redick, a Christian Laettner in the past for Duke, their head seemed on straight. They just didn't mind being bad boys from time to time. That's competitive. It's not out of control. Grayson Allen seems to be out of control. And that's what I find problematic in this entire equation. I'm not saying that you just suspend him for 5 games because of what he did. I'm saying you suspend him the minimum of 5 games, which, by the way, Max, is against Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Florida State, and Louisville. You suspend him because you have to get to the bottom of what on earth is going on with this kid. He does not seem stable looking at him last night.
I think the reason you have to suspend him for 5 games, and I agree with my man Jay Will, I mean, he's right about this.
Right.
Is because he touched the stove and he didn't get burnt yet. He needs to feel it burn for his own good, let alone to set a standard of acceptable behavior. We talked about Boogie Cousins yesterday a bunch, and Richard Sherman, who both, I felt, gave into moments of emotional weakness. You know, everyone's faced with this throughout their lives, but especially in the crucible of competition with the cameras on you and everything, their temptation is to give in and be weak in that moment, especially a very competitive person who's beaten on the play. I mean, this keeps happening to him when he has no other way of affecting the play. He sticks out his foot, which is dirty, but it's like the competitiveness gets the better of him. in such a way that he fails that emotional test. And he knows he was on the hook for this anyway. Like, he knows people are watching for that. So for him to do it tells me that it's an impulse control problem. And then it's a matter of how do you rein that in? And he won't be able to rein it in if he just gets away with it. He needs to be suspended. So Richard Sherman, if you look at the way he dealt, now he did get caught, but if you look at the way he dealt with intimidating someone in the press, it seems to me that he's internalized throughout his life, because he's an evolved and educated person, the right way to do things. And when it was brought to his attention, maybe whether or not he wanted it to, look, you got caught doing this, he said, okay, you know what? That's not who I want to be. That's wrong. And the way he went about explaining himself, you think he's going to be okay. Richard Sherman's okay, his character. Boogie Cousins was a little bit different. Boogie Cousins, you feel like, is he saying that because he feels like he has to? And will he ever get his impulses under control? And Grayson Allen here, who's their best player, you know, he can ball, but you get the same feeling more along the lines of Boogie Cousins, where you feel, at least I feel, as though he keeps failing this emotional test. He gives in to he can't even call it the easy way out because of the repercussions, but he gives into that weakness and is willing to impulsively do something outside the rules when he can't win within the rules. So for everyone involved, including for him, he's got to feel it burn right now. If you touch the stove, you got to have a third-degree burn right now.
A couple of things is very, very important that we need to address. Number one, you've got people that sit there and they look at the Golden State Warriors, for example, and think about how if Draymond Green had not been suspended for Game 5 due to the kick in Game 4, they would be back-to-back champions. So I've got folks hollering at me talking about if Draymond Green's going to get character assassinated, if he's going to get raked through the coals, Grayson Allen needs to have the same. Not necessarily so. Draymond Green is being paid handsomely as a professional who went to college, played collegiate basketball for Tom Izzo. So you've went through that period. Grayson Allen is still a relatively young man on the collegiate level. Getting to your point in terms of impulse, reacting off of impulse and what have you. Max, to me, it's not about that. As much as I did not like that, and as much as I believe he should be suspended because of that, the reason why I'm just a touch empathetic to some degree is when I watched him go on the bench, he seemed completely out of control. That's not impulse at that particular moment in time. I'm just talking about it's a different impulse. I know it's all impulsive.
Yep, you're right. You're right. It's an emotional breakdown.
It's like an emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
And I'm saying because of that, you have to get to the bottom of it, because to me, if this were anyone else, we would literally look at them and we would say they look unstable.
Yep.
Right. I'm not saying that he's a kid. In no way am I trying to insult him. I'm saying to his wonderful parents, whom I'm assuming he has, to the great coach Mike Kay, to Duke University, to his teammates, his friends, and everybody else. I'm saying he looks as if he has a problem.
I'm glad
that needs to be said.
I think it's fair to say that the meltdown was almost more concerning than the third try.
Right.
Yeah, although it may have been that he realized that he lost the impulse. Like this is
I know that. I think that's what
he
it is.
realized that it was about to really hit the fan.
But you've seen that, and have you seen guys act that way even when they realize that stuff's about to hit the fan and they messed up?
Well, really emotional guys through in sports at times, in basketball even, yes. But I'm glad you brought up the fact that he's a kid, because I also have reservations about being overly critical of college players. They're not professionals. They're not quite adults yet. And when you see them weeping in the locker room, or weepy in the locker room, realizing the magnitude of what they've done, or in this case, what Grayson Allen's done, I do feel more sympathetic and protective of that than if he makes the NBA and has a career and does this as a professional. At that point, my attitude in terms of how much sympathy I have for him in that moment likely changes.
Real quick before we move on, a couple updates from the ACC. A source at the ACC saying the league agrees with the decision of Duke and Coach K, and one ACC head coach said that Allen needs help to handle his actions, and a Duke source reiterating Thursday morning that the school needed time to review and have the appropriate conversations before determining a course of action. So we've reacted to what Coach K said this morning in a statement. Let's take a listen to what he said about it right after the game, though.
What he did tonight was right. That's what people do. They say they're sorry. They accept responsibility. And they want to make sure that the other party knows that. Look, a lot of crap has happened to him, and a lot of bad shots at him. That doesn't mean it's right for you to try to get back, or, like, just don't pay attention to it. You can't pay attention to the fact that you did something wrong and you let your team down. To think that it's the last thing that's said about this to him is wrong. Obviously, we will do more. It doesn't mean you have to see it.
Max, obviously this isn't a professional, still a college kid. So how does Coach K look after all of this?
Like the benevolent dictator, which is okay. He's earned that credibility. Look, he's the most successful coach in the modern era in college basketball. He's the most, since John Wooden, really. Maybe Dean Smith, you want to throw him in there, but certainly Dean Smith was revered in that way. But he has an enormous amount of credibility, and that's the way he comes off, like the benevolent dictator. That said, were I Coach K, I would suspend Grayson Allen from all team activities for a period of time. I mean, it needs to, the main thing is if they're serious about not only setting an example at the school for other student athletes, but also if they're concerned with Grayson Allen and his behavior, it has got to burn. The consequence has to be immediate, and it needs to be severe enough that it hurts. So the next time he has the impulse to touch the stove, he doesn't, because he remembers, because he has a scar.
It's interesting that you say that, because I'm thinking about Coach K, and what I'm thinking about is the Coach K that took the liberty of lecturing Dillon Brooks last year when they went against Oregon in the NCAA tournament. Dillon Brooks was getting the better of Grayson Allen to some degree, agitating him to some degree, and, basically didn't want to shake hands or whatever after the game, and Coach K reprimanded him. I have no problem with Coach K's decision that he reached this morning, suspending Grayson Allen indefinitely. I get and I acknowledge the fact that he said last night that his actions were unacceptable. But the Coach K that seemed so willing to come to the defense of his own player was the same Coach K that was willing to lecture Dillon Brooks last year, to the point where the Oregon coach stepped up and basically sat up there and said, "You coach your players, I'll coach mine."
He was right.
And he was right to say that. And then Coach K just wanted to, downplay all of that and step aside from it. Having said everything, what I come to, the thought that enters my mind is this, and I have no issue with Coach K. 1,055 career victories overall, 982 at Duke, winning 79% of his games. The man is elite. He's great. He's a Hall of Famer. We know this. The issue that I have is that if this were Coach John Calipari instead of Coach K, would we be talking about Grayson Allen?
No.
Or would we be talking about Coach Cal?
Cal.
So if we're talking about Coach Cal, why can't we talk about Coach K? Because I hear everybody on the news all over the place talking about Grayson Allen. He's a kid. Now, there are guys in the NBA, but that don't mean they're men. They're still kids, young men trying to become men, needing to evolve. At least this dude's in college in a structured environment, recognizing that you may not be ready for the real world just yet. But Coach K, the grown man, the winner within, even though he's not the one that wrote that book, the guy that has accomplished so much, my issue with him is that his actions about Grayson Allen are not consistent with what his actions were about Dillon Brooks. And so you can ask the question, Max, why that is. But last point is, again, if this were John Calipari, we'd be all over him. You're the problem. And your players are just indicative, or they're emblematic of a bigger and realer problem, which is you, John Calipari. But far be it for any of us to say that about Coach K. No, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We're going to let Coach K off the hook. If something goes down with John Calipari like this, I don't want to hear a word.
I want to talk more about that point. I think it's a good one. First of all, Dillon Brooks is not on his team.
I know.
So when we look at college coaches and it's wrapped up in this idea that somehow it's for the good of the student athlete generally. No, it's not. They're looking out for their guys. And when he lectures another guy and the other coach tells him, worry about your own players, that's right. Worry about your own players. So let's look at how Coach K worries about his own players. Here's what's damning about this as it relates to Coach K, who, if he feels like he knows best, and he knows better than everyone else about how to handle this, his track record, at least in terms of winning, suggests that he's right. But in terms of the character of young men, this is recidivist behavior. So if this is your best player,
Did you say recidivist?
Yes, that means
I don't have my dictionary on me.
You do it again.
You do it
Like a pattern.
again. Recidivist.
Like, someone goes to jail, they get out, they go back in.
I suspected that's what it meant, but I wanted to make sure.
My vocabulary is getting so much better since you're on the show, and I appreciate it.
I just wanted to make sure. I'm elevating my vocabulary.
Stephen A. doesn't have a small vocabulary. He just plays that guy on TV sometimes with me.
Listen, he's helping the civilians like me over here.
I just need to know.
But the point is that kind of recidivist behavior you have to question. If that's your best player, Coach K, and ostensibly your leader, supposedly, your leader.
I knew that one. I knew that one. I learned that one last month. I learned that one last month, but go ahead.
And if he's your leader, and he's done this twice in the past, and this is an issue, why did it come up again? In other words, that is damning of Coach K. Your best player and supposedly your leader has done this twice in the past, and it happened again. You're absolutely right. If it was Calipari, that the story would be Coach Cal, but the story somehow here is not as much Coach K.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second and take the coaches out of this. I get that he's a college kid, but he is 21 years old. So at some point, don't you think he needs to be responsible and police himself and know better?
Wait a minute. Yes, but that's why I brought up what you saw on the bench. Because when you see what I saw on the bench, that's not immaturity. That's something else. He seemed out of control. And when it comes to you being out of control,
that was a meltdown.
When it comes to a meltdown, your age doesn't matter. Because now it's about there's a problem.
Yep.
And it looks like there's a problem. The reason why Coach K is a different subject, Maps, is because of this. Look, Coach K is the coach of Team USA basketball 3 times over. It's going to be Greg Popovich now. He did it in 2008, 2012, 2016. I've been on the record, as much as I love me some Coach K, I always felt it gave him an unfair advantage over other college coaches. Coach K is the closest thing to untouchable in college basketball, and I'm saying,
you touching him?
He needs to be touched on this one, and it's rare because Coach K is close to perfection. But if you're not going to get on a Coach Cal and others, you listen. You can't give him a pass because of what Max said. This is the 3rd time, so why wasn't this addressed before?
Your best player and leader, and that's a reflection on the coach. I think in some way it has to be, just as the success is a reflection on the coach. I want to bring up one name quickly. Ron Artest, Meta World Peace, right? Okay, so a good dude. Anyone who knows will tell you it's a really good dude. And he had an impulse control issue for a lot of his career and could melt down. And he has taken steps to address that and has worked on himself and has talked about mental health, etc., and has transformed himself. I'm sure he still struggles with it, from someone who that was a major issue to someone who is really a role model in many respects now. And so that can be done. Behavior can be changed, if only on the margins, if people work on themselves. But if they're never forced to do it, really, if it's just lip service is paid toward it, they won't do it. It's really important that this is addressed.
But getting back to Coach K, because he's Coach K, there are times where he himself, and I mean no disrespect, because God knows I respect him, but there are times where he comes across as a bit above.
No, I know what you mean. Holier than thou,
And it's like, and I've seen him that way in protecting his own players, but I've also seen him that way against former players of his own,
Elliot Ness,
who dare I say, have have given opinions about his program that have been somewhat critical. It will be real interesting to see how he treats Jay Williams going forward, considering that our very own Jay Williams called for Grayson Allen to be suspended for 5 games, and Jay Williams is one of, if not, is one of the greatest players in the history of Duke's program. This dude was electric.
Yeah, national champion.
And I see love coming to the Bobby Hurleys of the world and others like that. I don't see nearly as much love. Even to Jay Billis, I don't see nearly as much love being accorded to my man Jay Williams. I could be wrong. I'm just talking about what I see through my eyes during the time. I don't see
While we're talking about good dudes, another good dude.
Yep. And
and a
speaking
great
of,
player.
so Grayson Allen suspended indefinitely. It'll also be interesting to see what that means in terms of games he will actually miss, which will continue.
And Molly, I don't know if you know, I'm sorry to regurgitate, Jay Williams was a bad boy.
I do know.
mean, this brother was off the chain.
It is known.
Jay
Coming
Williams.
up after the break, much respect to Jay Will. The math is very simple. If the Giants win, they are in the playoffs. So why is Max Kellerman so nervous? We'll let you know. And later in the show, the police video has been released from Michael Floyd's DUI arrest, and it is very disturbing. How bad of a look is this for the New England Patriots? We react to all of it. First Take, just getting started.
First Take is presented by Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
Bowl season continues tonight at 7 on ESPN. It's the famous Idaho Potato Bowl between Idaho and Colorado State. And after the game, from the Sports Center at night with Lisa Kearney and John Anderson of everything you need to know from a busy night in sports. And tomorrow, we've got a bowl triple header for you on ESPN. At 1, it's the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl. Then at 4:30, the Armed Forces Bowl. At 8, the Dollar General Bowl. And guess what we got tonight? Thursday night football. It's the Giants and the Eagles. With the win, the G-Men will clinch their first playoff berth since 2011 when they did what, Max? They won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was for the second time in 4 years
against
Tom Brady and the Patriots.
Yes. The Eagles are winless in NFC East play this season. 2 games are remaining, and they're looking to avoid their first winless season in division play since 2005. So New York is a 2.5-point favorite in the city of brotherly love, a city you are very familiar with. Mr. Stephen A. Smith, who wins this one?
Well, I'm going with the Giants. I don't think the Giants are going to lose this
Yeah,
game.
you are. Big blue all day, baby.
I don't think it should be hard at all. I don't give a damn that Lane Johnson is coming back from his 10-game suspension. I'm not in panic mode about the New York Giants because of the Philadelphia Eagles. Lane Johnson is not going to help their running game, but so much because there's questions as to whether or not these guys can truly get it done. And Ryan Matthews and Darren Sproles, even though Darren Sproles has tried and proven, that hit that he took last week, I'm wondering whether or not his faculties are still in order. Don't get me started with the receivers. As far as I'm concerned, you only got one in Jordan Matthews. If you're Nelson Aguilar, this dude was put on, he was on the active list and still got benched on a team that don't have wide receivers, and that's the position that he plays. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that is? So I'm not concerned. And then when you look at it from that perspective, it was nice to see a tight end sighting from the Philadelphia Eagles last week or so. Their defense obviously is not stout, but it's not poor. But when you look at the New York Giants, the number 3 ranked defense in the NFL, number 6 against the rush, suspect against the pass, Carson Wentz threw for 364 yards the first meeting against them. I don't anticipate that will happen again. This is a game where the Giants need to win every single game because the NFC playoff picture has not been decided. The Eagles are on the outside looking in. They're playing with house money. If you are the New York Giants and you have a concern, that's basically it. They have nothing to lose, so they'll take chances. They'll veer away from conventional wisdom. They'll do things that are unpredictable. But for the most part, that's about all you have to worry about. If the Giants are who some people think they are, this should not be a difficult evening. It could be tough for a little while, but you should be able to handle your business with relatively no problem. Giants, 30. Eagles, 20.
Well, that covers the spread. They're only 2.5-point favorites. They're on the road, so they're saying that it's still not touchdown favorites. It's not like a blowout type game, even though the Eagles have a terrible record and the Giants have a great record this year. This is a divisional rivalry game that, as a Giants fan, I can tell you, when I see the Cowboys on the schedule, I'm not sweating it. When I see Washington on the schedule, I'm like, good. When I see Philadelphia on the schedule, damn. That is the team that has been the bane of my existence as a Giants fan throughout my life watching football, really, especially especially in the last 20 years. I don't even know what the record is offhand, but I know that they always play the Giants tough, even when they're not good and the Giants are good. And Lane Johnson does make a difference. Look, with him, they were a ball control team that was among the best in football, not just in terms of wins and losses, in terms of point differential, defense, time of possession, all those kind of indicators, like how the Cowboys are nowadays, that tell you that's an actually good team. You say, well, why? How could it be just one offensive lineman? Well, it's the best offensive lineman. It allows them to run the ball, which sets up the pass, and they become a different team. Here's the good news for the Giants. The Giants, as Ty Schalter has pointed out on 538.com, ESPN, do well against ball control teams. Like, look at the Cowboys. Look at the Lions. Look, those teams Giants are okay. It's the aggressive downfield teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers that have given them problems. The Eagles fall into the former category. They are a ball control type team when they're going well. If Lane Johnson is effective, and again, he's coming off 10 days, hasn't had time to develop chemistry with everybody, gets thrown right into the fire. So the Giants should be favorites in this game, and I do like them to win, but I think it's a close, tough game. And I hate it. I hate this matchup. I always hate it when the Giants play the Eagles, particularly when the Eagles are in a position to play spoiler late in the season. Stick it to the Giants, who are on a roll right now, break their momentum, and they're getting a player back who made a difference for them. I hate it. And Jackrabbit's questionable.
As wrong as you often are, and as much as I beat you up about it, I'm going to be light on you today because I understand his level of sensitivity there. And it's the holiday season. And I got love for you, my brother. I really, really do.
Well, thank you very much.
So I'm going to give you the love is here, baby. The love is here, okay? Here's the deal. The Philadelphia Eagles are playing with their offensive line intact for the first time all season long. Lane Johnson's back at right tackle. Barbie's going to move back to left guard. You got to take that into consideration. This is an Eagles touchdown that hasn't registered more than 2 touchdowns since week 3. Okay, so we understand that they're on a come up. Zach Ertz usually performs well against the New York Giants, but Jordan Matthews does have that ankle injury. Okay, I'm not sure about their running game, and we know how stout the Giants are against the run. They're the 3rd-ranked defense in points allowed, but 15th overall in the NFL because of their 23rd ranked passing defense. But so they're vulnerable to some degree if you had Jordan Matthews healthy, and I believed in Zach Ertz the way that I used to. I'm not so sure about that. I think the biggest argument that can be made for the Philadelphia Eagles for this particular game is the fact that they're playing with house money. They got nothing to lose. Yeah. They're playing with nothing to lose. They can take chances.
Let's not forget Carson Wentz. You're right.
And the Giants can't be caught sleeping.
Well, I mean, listen, Eric Flowers is beaten on every play. Either Eli has to get rid of the ball immediately, or Flowers is called for holding. I mean, basically, are the 2 outcomes of those plays on the left side.
Yep.
But I know Carson Wentz doesn't have offensive weapons. At skills positions, they don't have any talent there. And the receivers drop balls. They're not that good to begin with. The running game is suspect. You mentioned all that. Even with Lane Johnson there, but with a little more protection. Let's not forget what we all thought about Carson Wentz after week 4 or week 5. The question was, who was better, Carson Wentz or Dak Prescott? And early in the season, I looked at them both. I said, they're both really good. I think I see a little more from Carson Wentz. When he has a little something to work with, or when he had it earlier in the season, I know Jeff Saturday said maybe the league just figured him out, but that guy is a baller. And if you protect him a little bit, he makes me nervous as a Giants fan.
I understand. Well, you go ahead and be nervous. I mean, I think this is the season to be jolly, unless you're an Eagles fan. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, please. So if the Giants could just beat the Cowboys and then the Patriots.
I'm saying nothing because I'm jinxing nothing. Let's move on, folks. Disturbing video from the DUI arrest of Michael Floyd was released, but he still remains on the Patriots roster. The guys will react to that after the break. We'll share the video with you as well. Also coming up, a Hall of Famer calls Dak Prescott the best young quarterback he has ever seen. Stephen A. cannot wait to talk about that. We'll get into it. Arizona's legal limit for alcohol is .08. The Scottsdale Police Department arrested former Cardinal and current Patriot Michael Floyd on December 12th after the wide receiver fell asleep in the driver's seat of his vehicle while stopped at a traffic signal. The Scottsdale prosecutor told ESPN that Floyd, initially charged with obstructing a roadway, DUI, impaired to the slightest degree, DUI, blood alcohol content above .08, and failure to obey a police officer, has now been charged with 2 more serious offenses, one for blood alcohol content of .15 or more, and one for a blood alcohol content of .20 or more, giving him a total of 6 charges. Floyd's blood alcohol level was measured at .217. Here's the video from that officer's body camera of that evening.
Scottsdale Police, put your car in park. Put your car in park and turn off the car. Unlock the doors. Scottsdale Police, unlock your door. Turn your car off right now. Turn it off. Turn your car off. Turn your car off. Open the door. No, I want you to open the door. Put your hands on the steering wheel. Keep your hands right there. Do not move. Hands Hands there. Do not move. You understand me? No. Stay here. Hey, Bailey, come over here. Stay. Do not move.
Not move.
Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Hands on the wheel. Keep them on the wheel. Watch his hand so I can reach in and unlock it. Step out of the car. Step out. I'm not going to ask again. Step out of the car.
Why you gotta be like this?
Because you can't listen. That's the problem. Do you have any idea why I'm talking to you, sir?
You just go take a left with me.
Okay? No, because you
I'm not
sat
gonna
through...
help
Okay, you sat through 2 light cycles, and you were asleep behind the wheel. Okay? You passed out behind the wheel of your car. That's why all this is happening.
Here's Floyd's new head coach, Bill Belichick, yesterday, who claimed Floyd the day after Arizona cut him.
Yeah, we were aware of his situation when we claimed him.
Had you seen the video before you claimed him?
We were aware of the situation before we claimed him. He's in an ongoing legal situation that I'm not going to comment on. There are a lot of things outside of football that we all deal with. It's a long, long list, and we provide a lot of resources for everybody on that. So, yeah, absolutely, without a doubt.
Belichick said today that he was not aware of Floyd's blood alcohol level. Keep in mind, Floyd was suspended for a DUI charge while playing at Notre Dame. Will Kane here with us. Good to see you.
Morning.
Good morning. Max, I want to start with you. How bad of a look is this for the New England Patriots?
Really bad, but first I want to say I always feel a little funny watching video like that. I know people have this voyeuristic impulse to watch that kind of stuff, and those, like cop shows are popular because of that. And I know that it's an issue of public interest, and it might be good to embarrass or humiliate people out of that kind of behavior. It actually serves a function. I always feel like it's a violation of privacy, and I have a difficult time watching it. That said, the Patriots look bad here. As a member of the broader NFL community, I mean, the idea here is that you punish bad behavior, and you set it as a deterrent for others. And also because it's just really reckless. Look, this guy's over 200 pounds. He blew a .22 almost, .217. Legal limit's .08. That's almost 3 times the legal limit, and he's 200 pounds. I drive with my family on the road. I have 3 little girls. I don't want anyone like that on the road, period. And I am somewhat sympathetic to the idea, hey, your judgment is impaired because you imbibed. And when your judgment's impaired, you make bad decisions. So I get that, but I have no tolerance for that kind of behavior. And what the Patriots did by signing him before the ink was dry on his release was undermined the broader NFL community that should be trying to stigmatize this kind of behavior. And now Belichick's come out and said, hey, we weren't aware of this and that. And the Patriots aren't doing their due diligence when they check up on someone, or they just missed that. It's hard to believe. But that's what happened, and I think it's a bad look for New England.
Well, it's a bad look because it's embarrassing. I mean, Michael Floyd was lit, clearly. I mean, you cannot, it's hard to quantify what a .217 is, as you said, Max. That's a lot of booze. But I have to diverge from you, Max, when you come down on the Patriots. This is why. People are asking the question today, should the Patriots let go of Michael Floyd? Well, not if they have a backbone. If the organization has any backbone, their decision today should be the same decision they made a week ago. Ask yourself a very simple question. What's new? What's new?
Well, according to them, the knowledge of all this stuff.
No, come on. They knew he got a DUI. They knew there was a video. The only thing different is the existence or seeing the video. I mean, are you going to tell me that if it wasn't a 217, if it was a 15, that would make a big difference? I mean, is there some DUIs that are okay and some that are clearly too much? You drank way too much? That can't be the analysis here. The only thing different from a week ago is there's a video floating around that the public can be outraged about. So the point is this: if the Patriots thought it was the right decision a week ago to give this guy a second chance, then it's the right decision today. Now, you can debate second chances, and you guys know this very well. I'm personally of the opinion right now that we are putting way too many categories of offenses on the banishment list. That if you do something, you can no longer be part of a polite society. We've said any kind of sexual assault offense, gone. Any kind of domestic violence offense, gone. And now I guess we're adding DUI as well.
I want to address that really quickly.
I believe in second chances. I believe in rehabilitation. I believe sending people into the woods is not the right way to treat things. Yes, you punish them. But the Patriots made a decision a week ago that this offense was not one that Michael Floyd should no longer be employed for. And if that was the way it was a week ago, public outrage over a video should not sway it today.
Okay, real quick, Stephen A., if you don't mind me responding to that, two things. It just happened. This is not like a DV situation that happened 2 years ago, and now finally he's worked with different groups that tells you that he has internalized.
Right, but what's new,
that.
Max?
This is the ink wasn't dry. They signed him right away. This is why I don't think it's an issue of what's new. That's the way you're framing it. This is not a principled decision by the New England Patriots. They saw a player. They thought they could help him. They thought they could get away with it. Then public information came out that made it difficult for them to get away with it without a lot of moral outrage, and so now they're backtracking. To me, it demonstrates this was not a principled decision by the Patriots.
Couple of things. Number one, I have no problem with the decision by the New England Patriots whatsoever. What disgusts me is that I'm actually agreeing with him. But that's a different subject for another day. I have no problem with it whatsoever because they acquired him, but he hasn't been out on the field yet. You know, they'll investigate it further, but he's their guy. So at their discretion, they will have him available for their use, and they're trying to win a Super Bowl championship, and it is what it is. There are a few points, however, that I would like to address. Number one, the police officer, the issue of privacy that you brought up. Damn all that. Those days are over. We live in a very public society.
I don't like it either.
But I don't have to like it.
Yeah.
That's true, but I'm just saying. The point is that, first of all, it was nice to see a police officer exercising what I would dare say restraint, patience or whatever the case may be. I'm talking about visually. I'm quite sure there's a bevy of police officers. Most police officers do their job hard.
I was going to say, Stephen, let's not pretend like that's the exception. That's
right.
the rule.
The
bad instances are the exception.
I've always said that that's the rule. That's what they usually do. It's nice to see that because that police officer did his job and he did it correctly. That's number one. Number two, I found it very, very interesting that this incident took place December 12th. And we see the video now. We've waited a lot longer for other videos. It took a little while longer, with other instances to get out. It's nice to see that they can get it out quickly when they really, really want to. That's number two. Number three, here's the deal. We want to walk around like big business can be paragons of virtue. They're not. They're not interested in doing it. They're not want to be. I don't like the fact that Bill Belichick sat up there and didn't answer the question as to whether or not he saw the video. I believe he has an obligation to ask that question, to answer that question directly. Did you see the video? And make this decision anyway. We do have a right to know that as football fans and whatever. Now, we don't have to, we can question it, but he can do what he wants. But to not even answer the question as to whether or not you specifically saw the video that we just saw when you made the decision, don't act like we don't have a right to know that. We do have a right to know that about Bill Belichick, whether or not he saw the video. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. If you decide to make the decision, you decide to make the decision. Because in a league that's in bed, literally, figuratively, and otherwise, with beer distributors and alcohol, look, this is what's going on. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, I understand it.
One thing I just want to add to that point. Earlier I mentioned that he had a DUI when he was at Notre Dame. This is actually his third run-in with the law over alcohol since 2009.
He's got a problem.
Does that change your opinion at all in terms of the Patriots picking him up just based on having the history?
Not for me because the Patriots knew all that. Okay. I stand with this question I'm asking about what's new.
Yep.
What you saw, by the way, when Belichick avoided the question, honestly, what you saw was fear. It shows that even the most protected coach in the NFL, the one at the highest of the mountain, is afraid of public outrage. Because if he says he saw that video, then the mob of public outrage can come after you.
But you're explaining what he was going through in the moment that he was asked the question. I am saying he had an obligation to answer that question. We do have a right to know. And if you saw the video before you made that
but let me say this.
You have that right.
But let me say, well, Max, my point is, we're in agreement. Right. He should show the backbone to stand up to the mob if he thinks his decision was right. This is why I like what Coach K originally said about the Grayson Allen situation. He said, I will not make my decision to satisfy others. I will do what I think is right right for my
Wait,
player,
let me
my
ask-
team.
but
Now
Hold on,
you
one more
react to
point,
that.
The
Max.
assumption that you keep making of that point, it's a legitimate point, but it's based on the assumption that he made a principled decision in the first place. What if he simply made a competitive decision?
I'm not getting that for what,
and-
Will.
What if he made a competitive decision and was hoping to get away with the fact that there wouldn't be moral outrage because people wouldn't notice so much, and once they did, now he's backing off on that basis?
Well, you're making the assumption about the getting away with it aspect. I don't know if he was trying to get away
we
with
don't
something.
know, but I don't think
But
we can
even if it
assume
was a
otherwise.
competitive decision, maybe it wasn't a second chance. Maybe it wasn't rehabilitation. Maybe it was simply, we can get a good football player here
Yeah, it
at
was.
cheaper price. That decision stands today the same way it did the other day. The only difference is the public outrage.
Okay, but I want to get to that. So isn't it good if the Fourth Estate brings enough pressure to bear that someone who refused to look, if it was the case, at the moral implications of something is then embarrassed into looking? Isn't that actually a good use of the mob, as it were?
Well, Max, this is what I would say. I would start with where you started. All the facts are the same. The man got a DUI. He got a bad DUI. It was his third DUI. The Patriots knew all those things. The only thing that moved their decision is embarrassment, which you said you have a problem with the embarrassment factor in the first place. Just, you can't
The
allow
humiliation of the individual, the fact that an organization is forced through public pressure to examine or to at least succumb to the idea that there should be principles involved and not just the competitive
I got
decision,
it.
I think can be a constructive
we got it.
force.
At the end of the day, I get where you're coming from. Basically, what you're saying is, look, answer the question as to whether you saw the video or not, and if that's your principal position, you don't give a damn what anybody says, which is why you brought up Coach K last night.
And by the way, you're going to
Totally
talk about
understand
Joe
that.
Mixon later in the
That's
show.
right. That's
Same
right.
thing. Bob Stoops has changed his position
Punishment,
based
the
upon
theme of
the
our show
outrage.
today.
Yes.
Honestly. All right.
Principled yesterday, or was it the day before?
Good stuff, guys.
Not
Coming
today?
up after the break, Troy Aikman calling Dak Prescott the best young quarterback he has ever seen. The guys will tell you if they agree after the break. And at the end of the show, Stephen A's final take, reacting to George Karl taking shots at Carmelo Anthony. You don't want to miss that. First take, stay tuned.
See, this is the problem. Oh, I want to hear that. In what damn world there an accident waiting to happen? Lord have mercy, you can't be real about anything.
Dak Prescott's #1 fan just might be Hall of Fame Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman. Not a bad guy to have in your corner. Here's Aikman on SiriusXM NFL Radio.
I'm absolutely amazed with him, Pat. There's nothing I don't like about him. I've never felt the presence of a young quarterback like I did with him. And you say, wow, this is the most impressive young man I've ever been around at this position. And I really believed he was going to go out and play well. And I found that, before halftime of that game, his very first start, I was no longer looking at him and viewing him as a rookie. I felt my analysis kind of being along the lines of a veteran quarterback and what my expectations, were of him on the field. And I thought it spoke volumes just to how he carried himself.
Pretty solid endorsement. Will Kane still here with us. But Stephen, I want to start with you. Do you agree with Aikman that Dak is the best young quarterback?
Well, I think if you're talking about right now, sure, I give him love. But when he said the best young quarterback, I went to the ever route. And I'm not ready to say that. I mean, I'm sorry. I respect Dak. I got mad props and love for him based on what I'm seeing. But I recall seeing some dude by the name of Dan Marino. His second year in the NFL. Guide the Miami Dolphins to the Super Bowl. And I'm talking about a dude that was a straight-up gunslinger. I don't see Dak Prescott throwing a football like I saw that brother throwing the football. Dan Marino was something special to behold. Dan Marino was absolutely spectacular. In 3 playoff games, Dan Marino threw for 1,001 yards and guided the Miami Dolphins to a Super Bowl. His second year in the league. Now, obviously, that's not rookie. It's just second year in the league. That's why the operative word here is young. Had he said rookie, that might have been different, been a bit tougher to come up with it. But it was very, very easy for me. I said, wait a minute. I've seen plenty of games where Dak Prescott, major props to him in terms of his poise and leadership, looked relatively pedestrian throwing the football. There was nothing that knocked my socks off. There's a 15-yard pass here, a 12-yard pass there, a 10-yard pass there on a 3rd and long conversion, or whatever the case may be. But he wasn't some gunslinger that rolled out there without a running game where you had you and Mark Clayton and Mark Super Duper to throw the ball to and everything. Because you had no defense, because Don Shula didn't give you a defense. You had no defense, you had no running game, you barely had an offensive line, and Dan Marino went out there with everybody knowing it was 2 targets he was going to throw the ball to and couldn't stop him. So I'm just saying to y'all, I like Dak a lot. But when you talk about a great young quarterback, you mentioned him in the same breath. If he had mentioned him in the same breath as Dan Marino, I would have said blasphemy.
Here's
blasphemy.
Let me be sacrilegious.
That's right. Go ahead.
Look, he said there's something about him. Being around him. He didn't say he was around Dan Marino. Saying,
oh, don't get
young quarterback
with me.
Is getting
What you going to tell me next? Is something about Mary? You going to bring up that movie since you like to bring up movies?
Dan
something
Marino,
about it?
Look, Dak Prescott will never have Dan Marino's talent. Dan Marino's more talented, period.
I won't say never.
No.
He just doesn't have it yet.
No. Dan Marino is a different kind of
animal. I won't say never.
No.
Don't say never with Dak. Don't say never with Dak.
Watch me. Never.
No. There you go again. The hyperbole.
Dan Marino was a different kind of talent. I don't think he's as talented as Andrew Luck, a quarterback from recent years who you saw him early. But there is something about Dak. Look, it is not out of the realm of possibility right now that Dak Prescott, as a rookie, can win the MVP and the Super Bowl in the same season as a rookie. Now, of course, he has a great offensive line and a great running back because no rookie quarterback could do it without stuff like that. So he is exceptional. He is not the most talented guy I've ever seen, not as a rookie, etc. But that's not what Troy Aikman was talking about. Troy Aikman was talking about the leadership thing, that star quality that we've seen since the first preseason game with Dak that we all talked about, that we all noticed. Roethlisberger had some of that. I find it completely credible that Troy Aikman can say, of all the young quarterbacks I've been around, that quality is more in this kid than in anyone else. I'm not talking talent, Stephen A. I'm talking about that.
We don't know how many he's
been
around.
Do it, Max. Do it. Complete the math equation. You can do it all the way to the end. As good as a young Dan Marino. You can be blasphemous. Don't let him scare you. You can everything you say.
He's not as talented as Dan Marino.
That's a nonsense word. It's an impenetrable, abstract nonsense word. Talent. It's one you can pull the ripcord on your argument at any point.
Impenetrable, abstract, you with your. I mean, what the hell is this? You remember Dan Marino? MIT?
Yeah, now I'm good.
What the hell is wrong with you two?
Now I'm good. Yeah,
you two are something special, boy. I tell you something wrong with y'all.
Go
ahead.
I'm going to put this in the blasphemy zone that
you go ahead and
says.
Go. You go there.
I will.
Where's my Bible? Where's my Bible? The blasphemy.
And my position.
Let me look it up.
Just to be clear, mine will be the rational one. Yeah. No. Yeah, I compared Dak Prescott to Dan Marino, and I'm the rational one. Because what you do is you take Dan Marino's entire body of work, including the fact that
I mentioned 83. I did not say his entire career. Don't misquote me.
Thank you, Molly. That's rational thought. You gave Dan Marino.
You're bold. Don't be misquoting me on my own damn show. I did not. I said 1983. 1983. I didn't say his whole career.
Okay, got it.
Go ahead.
You gave Dan Marino 2 years. You're giving Dak not even a complete season yet, and as Max just pointed out, he's currently in the race for QBR with Tom Brady and Matt Ryan.
Yep.
Dak Prescott is in the race to lead the league in QBR. He's about to tie Ben Roethlisberger for the most victories by any rookie in NFL history if he gets to 13.
And you want to start Tony Romo.
And he's very likely to take his team to the Super Bowl, something Dan Marino did not do in his rookie year. So you get 2 years. And I get 1, not even
my
1.
Lord.
And I'm telling you, in the same sample size.
You do this with a straight face.
You're
it's
right,
unbelievable. Go ahead.
In the same sample size, Dan Marino year 1, Dak Prescott year 1. You know who's winning? Dak Prescott. And that's beside the fact that Troy Aikman is right, and Max points it out. He's talking about things beyond stats. He's talking about things beyond QBR.
I don't know what to call Will, Christopher Reeves, Clark Kent. I don't know what the hell to talk to you with that. Here's the deal. This is the thing that kills me about you. I said 1983, but I didn't stop there. I talked about Super Duper and Mark Clayton. I didn't stop there. I talked about no running game. I talked about a suspect offensive line. I talked about I'm not scrambling. I'm staying right on point. You know why, Will? Especially you, because you're a pro at doing this. You're not as gifted as me, but you're a pro at doing this. You'll bring up all the other intangibles. I recall you talking about Dallas's defense.
Oh, yeah.
You ain't gonna talk about Miami's defense back then, are you? I recall you talking about Dallas's running game. You ain't gonna talk about Miami's running game back then, did you? Don't ever give me Dak Prescott may very well be big time. I'm telling you right now, I don't give a damn. I will project because this is his rookie. He will not be what we saw from Marino in year 2.
Well, I hear there's footage of a young Will Kane talking about there's some veteran quarterback on the Miami bench that they should start instead of Dan Marino in the second year.
You think so?
Are you still on the Romo thing, or are you backing
There
off?
you go.
Let me show you. Let me show you how rational I am. It's Dak's team from here.
Oh, my God.
Man, way to
Congratulations. Okay.
Can you
that was solid, though. You were trying to own him right there. That was solid.
Go
I'm a
ahead.
self-aware individual.
Oh, self-aware, that's what it is.
I was listening to I'm going to analyze myself on this.
Did my listeners convince you? Did my listeners, because you know you feel different.
I love that he feels it.
Did my listeners on the Stephen A. Smith Show, Sirius XM, Mad Dog Sports Radio,
No.
What time?
1 to 3
Channel
p.m.
82.
Even though there's change coming next month, stay tuned.
Got it.
Did they convince you to see the
I'm going
light?
to tell you what convinced me.
ahead.
I'm in all self-awareness. Like a therapist, I wanted to look into the mirror and say, why have I been on the Tony Romo bandwagon for so long?
So you needed therapy. He confessed he needed therapy. Keep going.
It has a lot to do with you. And I'm going to tell you, listening to one of my favorite radio stations, The Ticket in Dallas, and they were talking about this. Tony Romo defenders have for so long been defending him against the moronic assertions of people like yourself and having to defend him in being the top 5 statistically great quarterback that he is, that when it got to this year, we had become so set in our habits and ways of rebutting your irrational positions that this year, when it flipped on us, we didn't realize there, at the very end, the beginning I was right, but at the very end, I had become the irrational one. You have to ride the 11-game winning streak. You have to ride the young man.
There you go. There you go.
Winning streak.
There you go.
You don't have to ride an 8-game winning streak.
Be gracious, man.
By the way, be respectful. There's nothing about my position that's moronic in any way. And by the way, all the citizens in Dallas, the radio stations, they call you. They don't call me. They know better. You understand? So ain't nobody hiding. Number 2, I said if Jerry Jones ever invited me, I'd go to a tailgate party with Dallas Cowboy fans. That's how confident I am in my position. And number 3, I have 2+ decades of history to lean on. What do you have? What do you have?
Even though
for Tony Romo, even when Dak Prescott was winning, you have no credibility.
He came around very big of you.
First of all, my credibility runs to 1981 when Dwight Clark caught a pass in the back of the end zone with Stickum on his hands. When Joe Montana threw it.
The Cowboys use Stickum, right?
We don't have time to go down memory lane right now, even though I'd love to. Let's move on. After Ezekiel Elliott was not fined by the NFL for jumping into the Salvation Army's red kettle in celebration this weekend, Odell Beckham Jr. claimed he would have been fined for the same action. Now, just days later, Beckham revealed in an Instagram comment that he was fined for wearing colorful cleats during the Giants game on Sunday. Beckham said his cleats were in honor of the late Craig Sager, and they will be auctioned off for charity to benefit cancer research. OBJ tweeting this. $18K without a single warning. But the world would never know. They act like it's no big deal. No respect for the message, in my opinion. Now, the NFL allowed players to wear tribute cleats for a charity in Week 13, but not during the past week of games. Max, I want to start with you here. Do you have any issue with this fine on OBJ?
Yeah, I wish the NFL wouldn't. I understand the idea that they have contracts with companies, and this undermines that when people wear, breast cancer awareness, whatever, or even Craig Sager cleats. But Odell has a bigger point here, I think. I was critical of him when he made the comment about Dak Prescott, given the fact that the Salvation Army does good work, and if someone's bringing attention to that, I didn't think Odell should make it about himself. And Odell, to his credit, tweeted out later that day or the next day, like sometimes I don't time my comments well or something like that. He is actually self-aware, but when you're a young man that gets that much attention and that much criticism, it must feel, I imagine, how many of us are in that position, that you're victimized, that the world is coming at you fast, and your responses will be suboptimal at times. This puts his comment at the time into context. He feels that, look, I did a good thing. I honored a great person, and I'm raising money for a good cause, and yet I am fined for it. So really what he's saying is he's not against the Salvation Army. He's against the idea that more can't be done. But the timing of his comment, and without this knowledge, it made it seem as though he was being narcissistic and tone deaf.
But that's what he is being, Max. Look, The NFL isn't the big bad guy in this equation. If you don't like the rule, fine. If you don't think the players should be restricted in what they wear, even when it raises money for charity, fine. But the rule exists, and Odell Beckham knew it existed. He's a victim because he makes himself a victim. This is a guy who can jaw at the refs, get in a fight with Xavier Rhodes, get in a fight with Josh Norman, do all these things, and then say, they come down on me if I tie my shoes wrong. He always sees himself at the center of the story. Charles Barkley recently said this about DeMarcus Cousins. He said, it's always about DeMarcus. It's the same thing with Odell. It's always about you. You can't see the action, Odell. You can't see the difference. You can't see what you did. You knew it's against the rules. You knew it.
But
he knew it. And he did it anyway.
So take it from his point of view. He didn't come out and say, look, I had these cleats at first. He said, look, the Salvation Army thing. I thought that this was against the rules. And then everyone says, oh, why are you bringing attention to that? Why are you making it about yourself? Salvation Army is a good cause. Now here you are saying everyone knows the rules, but sometimes they can be bent. And that was his point.
Nobody's hands are completely clean in this. And I agree that the NFL, if you're going to intermittently enforce your rules, you're going to make everybody question them.
That was his point.
No, that's the point, though. He shouldn't be making a point. He should be doing what he knows is right, not breaking the rules to make a point.
He didn't. He didn't bring up his cleats at first. But he simply brought up that is an inconsistent enforcement of the rules. He was then criticized for that, and now he is offering new information. That's why this was on my mind.
Gentlemen, calm down.
Oh,
I get a little emotional when I talk about the Giants.
You know,
Hold on, I just want calm down, said Stephen A.
I just want y'all to calm down.
Take a breath.
I just take a breath, be cool.
Who are you and what have you done with Stephen A. Smith?
Be cool, let's get it together, okay? Here's the deal. Will's right.
Oh, my gosh.
Rules are rules. And the fact of the matter is, Odell Beckham Jr. knew those rules. Now, we knew they were exercised intermittently because that's what the NFL does. Odell was aware of that beforehand. He's aware of that now. And he still feels this, so compelled to constantly speak. And the more he speaks, he's jeopardizing himself the way Max Kellerman so eloquently said that he's jeopardizing himself weeks ago. Max Kellerman sat here and said he should be quiet, because you're bringing unwanted attention to yourself and you're ultimately going to attract the ire of the league and officials and beyond. And he has to be mindful of that. Why? Because it is what it is. Fair, as my boy Jeff in California says, fair is a place where they judge pigs. It doesn't exist, okay? You got to put on your big boy pants and deal with that. However, having said all of that, let's be also mindful of this. The NFL is going to have to be more consistent. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to have to heighten their level of sensitivity because, again, let's think about this. Where does that money go? I mean, NFL gives to charities, but I think some of this fine money they get, that's feeding the charities themselves. It wouldn't shock me if we learned that that's the reality. You taking money from guys disguised as fines and everything like that, and you're donating that money to charity instead of directly. Yeah, but I'm saying, what about directly out of your pocket as a league? Your money, okay? You should be doing that too. Not to say that they're not. But I'm mindful of all of these things. But in the end, Will is right. Big boy rules apply.
I want to address that.
You got to understand what the rules are.
I was totally consistent about this. I was critical of him when I felt he was bringing unnecessary attention upon himself and not optimizing his potential. As a result, he was hampering himself. I was critical of him yesterday or the day before when this story broke about the Salvation Army and his criticism of the league and the inconsistent enforcement of their rules. I was critical. Odell, that's a bad look, etc. This is now the story. More information has come out. And he brings this up about his own fine. This actually illuminates the previous tweet and makes it look a little better. I'm not being asked to comment on the previous two instances, which I did at the time and was consistently saying, Odell, get a grip here, like realize what's going on. We're asked to comment about this, where I have to admit he's making a good point about the inconsistent enforcement of rules.
One thing I do have to say, I think there's a better way he could have handled it. We saw what Cam did. We criticized Cam often. He honored Craig Sager. We saw him in his walkout outfit. He had the crazy hat. We clowned him for it in the post-game press conference. But I do believe that if Odell Beckham had jumped in that red Salvation Army kettle, he would have been fined for it. I do believe there is a double standard. I'm not saying saying he needs to go out and say it, but I do truly believe there's a double standard there.
That's why I'm sitting here saying, Odell, shh, you're right. There may be a double standard.
You're feeding his victimhood mentality by saying that. That's the reason the NFL.
Not paranoid if they're really out to get you, Will.
The reason the NFL forgave that fine is because it's bad PR to fine for jumping in the Salvation Army bucket. It's not who did it. Yeah. That's what they're trying to avoid.
You can say it's bad PR for honoring Craig Sager too.
But here's the thing. So Max, I hate to do like be too trite or make childhood lessons here, but 2 wrongs do not make a right. And the fact that the NFL didn't enforce. So you'd be the guy in Greece that doesn't pay taxes because nobody else does. You'd be the guy in Italy that says, I don't need to pay taxes, nobody else does.
Well, no, that's one example. I can give you others.
There y'all go venturing beyond.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is this.
Not paying taxes. That guy's not paying.
Calm down.
Just relax.
It's okay, Max.
Cool.
Woosah.
Will's the one guy in Greece paying taxes, apparently.
Stephen A., let's change the subject here. You've got final take today. What's on your mind?
On my mind today is Mr. George Karl and coaches who feel the need to talk about players. I'll leave it at that until the end of the show.
You gonna be calm?
Absolutely. I'm ultra cool, baby.
Yeah.
I give new meaning to cool. Did you not know?
You do give new meaning.
You about to say something about my shirt. I know you looked at it.
He didn't give new compliments. He said multiple times you were right today. This
so many
was a
times.
win.
Can we pull that? Let's get that clip. Will is right. Just pull that. Run that on loop.
We have to remember, I said it before I spoke.
Oh.
Had you followed me up,
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't know what the hell you're talking about.
Details.
But because
Will,
you went first.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
Merry Christmas to all three of you.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Coming up after the break, it was the interception that cost the Seahawks the championship, but you won't believe what Russell Wilson said when he was asked if he would do it again.
It's got to be one of the dumbest calls offensively in Super Bowl history.
Such a good game, such a bad call. We all remember that questionable play call in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and with a similar call in this past Thursday Seahawks-Rams game, Richard Sherman not too happy about it, complaining on the sideline and in his post-game press conference yesterday. Russell Wilson was asked about Sherman's criticism and the Super Bowl play. Take a listen.
I hope we get to the 1 yard line again, and I'd throw it again too, if it was the right call, at the right timing. So I have all the confidence in the world in that. I have all the confidence in the world in the players that we have. There's no reservations in my mind, no hesitation at all. And like I said, we're committed to doing whatever it takes to win and finding ways.
Oh, Max, what do you make of Sierra's husband saying this?
Russell Wilson.
I do like that introduction.
Russell Wilson is a great player. In his prime, he's exactly who you want as the quarterback of your team. He's become underrated. He has got to be a coach's dream. I mean, he's never going to throw his coaches under the bus. He's never going to throw teammates under the bus. There are times where you're asked a question point blank. In this case, one of the stars of the defense has criticized the coaching staff. What do you do as the quarterback? He diffuses it. He says the thing that he believes, he calculates will be the least disruptive for the team. This is exactly right. This is why you got to love the guy. Oh, he's just a game manager, a mobile game manager who's big on third down, a Super Bowl champion. That's exactly who you want. And then a guy who does this, who you never have to worry about causing a problem in this way. Now, all that said, in fact, the pack leader of the Seattle Seahawks is Pete Carroll. I mean, it's actually the coach in this case. But even so, and maybe that suits Russell Wilson's personality, but even so, this guy is just excellent in so many ways, and this is another example of it.
He is excellent. He is about team first. Russell Wilson is a winner and a good guy. But I'll be damned if I want to hear him say that he'd do it again. That's idiotic. That's just stupid. I'm sorry. He's not stupid, but that's a stupid damn statement. And by the way, I'm not just calling Russell Wilson out on this. I'm calling Donovan McNabb out. I'm calling any of our NFL aficionados, the experts that we have at this network, who I respect and listen to and revere to some degree.
I thought you were so brilliant because you knew what you didn't know.
Listen.
What happened to the
But I also know what I do know.
speeches.
But I also know what I do know. I also know what I do know. That doesn't mean I have to agree with them 100% of the time. This is a democracy, Max Kellerman. Don't you look at me like that. Look. I will be calm because I saw you just now. Let me tell you something, man. I don't want to hear that. Look, you throw that catch to Curse, the acrobatic catch is bumbling all over the place. Beast mode, before that, you hit him down the left sideline. He scampers down the field to put you in position to win the Super Bowl. Then this dude from the 5-yard line runs 4.5 yards on first down. You got second down at the half-yard line with beast mode in the backfield.
But they don't have beast mode anymore.
Listen to me. I'm talking about that play, Mollywood. That play.
Okay.
That play in that Super Bowl. Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, behind you.
Yeah, it was a bad
and
call.
you got, listen. The man said he would do it again. Did he not say he would do it again?
That shows confidence in his team and in himself,
stop it.
Stephen A.
You two,
There's
stop
no
it.
beef
You
with
two,
it. He's
right
showing
now.
that I
You
can
think
get
he's on a lie detector test?
Listen, right now, both of y'all get to me. Y'all get to me right now. I'll admit it.
'Cause
Y'all
we're
get to me.
right.
I'm not going to take this from y'all.
We're
You're going
right.
to tell me that
He's not there. He's saying I could get it done this
Mollywood,
time.
Mama's watching, so I'm not gonna let me calm my phone. Now you different. My mother, I got to watch my tone when I'm talking to you, Mollywood. But you know your football. I'm not gonna let you get away with this.
Go
Don't
ahead.
act like it's okay.
Back your way
to
out
have
of the corner.
Excuse me, may I speak? I don't act like it's okay, Mollywood, to be at the half-yard line with beast mode.
It's not.
This is what we're talking about.
Hold on. Time out.
Did he not say he would do it again? Did he not say he would do it again?
Time out. Was that a good idea to not run Marshawn Lynch in and win the Super Bowl? No, it was a bad idea.
Hold
We're on the same page.
What about throwing it over the middle?
Does Russell Wilson...
Donovan and his Arizona living self sitting there talking about how it was the right play.
You want Russell Wilson on that fence. You need him on that fence. On that wall, or was it a fence? I forgot.
That was a wall. It was a wall, damn it. Look at you.
The point is,
it was a wall.
You need him there. Whatever the hell it was, you need him there. You want him there, you need him there. Because he knows the question.
Sprinkle it on you. Sprinkle it on you. You got to be crazy. What?
He knows the question is not about what would actually happen. It's a trap set.
So now you're thinking
by
for
the
him.
media.
Now you're thinking for him.
To see if he will fall into it.
Now you're thinking for him.
And because he is a great quarterback of a great franchise, he won't fall into the trap.
So in other words, he can't sit back and go like this. Damn. We might have ran the football in that situation. We wouldn't let that happen again. He can't do that. That's too much. Oh, that's showing weakness.
He supports the coaching staff. He's not going to throw anyone under the bus.
Is Russell Wilson a politician near you? Is he running for office and he didn't tell us about it?
Yes, you know what office he's running for? Super Bowl champion. That's the office.
Excuse me. That ain't going to stop him.
And he's already a one-term.
That doesn't prevent him from telling the truth. That's why Richard Sherman got in their face, because he's tired of hearing that nonsense.
Yeah, but Richard Sherman's not the quarterback. Russell Wilson is. That comes with additional responsibility.
He can handle it if it happened again.
Pete Carroll is a great coach. Pete Carroll is a good man. Pete Carroll made one of the worst calls in Super Bowl history.
I agree.
That was atrocious.
I agree. Run in Marshawn Lynch. By the way, Russell Wilson agrees too. He just ain't going to tell you that and throw anyone under the bus.
Take a breath. Relax. Calm down. We got more to get to. Coming up, Bob Stoops speaks out about the punishment he gave to Joe Mixon, and his answer surprised some. The guys will react to that after the break. Also ahead, Aaron Rodgers and the Pack haven't lost since he said the Packers could run the table, but should he be the NFL MVP? And does Stephen A. Smith have a problem with George Karl taking shots at Carmelo Anthony? He will answer that in his final take. Stay here.
Welcome back to First Take, presented by Bass Pro Shops.
It says here, that's not even fair. By the way, kids, stay away from all this stuff. Bum. I always keep my eye on them. I don't think the sky is falling. Jedi mind trick. Yes, he is worth every penny.
The countdown continues. We're less than 2 weeks away from First Take's big move to ESPN. Wale will perform live with a special guest. I cannot wait for that. Plus other big guests, including Ice Cube, Jim Kelly will be here. So make sure you join us as we go from 2 to 1 on January 3rd.
I think 2.5 years ago, some viewed the tape locally and thought it was fair or appropriate, or to some degree, it was, significant penalty and discipline. 2.5 years later, it's fair to say it isn't enough, and that's positive in that that's the way the things have gone in the last 2.5 years. That really the only thing that's ever acceptable anymore is dismissal.
That was Oklahoma head coach Bob Stoops saying he thinks if the Joe Mixon assault had happened in today's world as opposed to in 2014, the punishment would have been different. Trevor Manich is in the house. We appreciate you joining us on this and having your perspective, but I'm going to start with Max. Max, what's your reaction to Stoops' comments you just heard?
Well, he looks bad here. Stoops looks bad because it's fine if he recognizes his error and changes course, but once he changes course, the question is, why did he err in the first place? And what are the actual motives for changing course now? So I don't think there's a way around him looking bad.
He looked bad, but I think it was because he was inartful. Because I think what he was really trying to say, and what he did say at a different point in that 21 minutes, is that today the second chances that might have been available 2.5 years ago aren't available now, partly because of the Ray Rice video. If the Mixon video had come out 2.5 years ago, that would have been the Ray Rice video. Then you look at Baylor and things that you can't come back from. All those things have transpired in the 2.5 years after that. And I think what he was saying is that while coaches look to how they can save a kid, if it's at all possible, and sometimes it's not, today that window is much more narrow, and dismissal really has become the only option.
Let me say this, and we'll get into this a little bit further. I didn't really have much of a problem with anything that Stoops said. I don't think the problem needs to be aimed in his direction for anything he articulated. I think the real problem emanating from his words is the indictment against our society that exists. He just illuminated it and highlighted it. When he talks about what would have been the case a couple of years ago compared to now, that's not an indictment against him. It's an indictment against us. This happened a couple of years ago. What happens? Mixon gets suspended for the year. The NFL at the same time, because the Ray Rice situation happened around that same time. Ray Rice's original sentence by Commissioner Roger Goodell was 2 games. It was only after the uproar, because of the release of the video, where we all saw with our own eyes what Ray Rice had actually done, that the commissioner then piggybacked off of it and ultimately suspended him indefinitely. I think it was like 6 games or whatever the case may be. My point to you is that that's not about what Stoops is saying. That's about Stoops highlighting, look, this is what it would have been like today. If this had happened today and we had to make this decision today, things might have been far more severe, because back then we were a bit too lenient. All of us were. The National Organization for Women and other women's rights organization. What is their battle cry? What is it that they're saying, Molly? What they're saying is that you guys, you folks, have not paid nearly enough attention to this, which is why when the Ray Rice situation came down, what happened? Everybody came out, and all of a sudden you saw USA Today with articles highlighting Roger Goodell the day he took office and the cases that came before him and the leniency that he had exercised and how the NFL needed to address this and how big and poignant of a problem this was, because we didn't address it with the fervor and the tenacity that it deserved. And that's what I took from what Stoops was saying yesterday.
Stephen A., that's fair. And let me preface what I'm about to say by the fact that I think I understand the situation as well as a man can.
Okay.
When I was a small boy, I saw my mom beaten and bruised. And I was helpless to do anything about it. Imagine seeing it now. So when I heard about what Mixon had done, without the video, my first reaction was fury, because I had seen it. I didn't have to imagine it academically like a written description would be. And I think the video coming out makes it real to people, and that's good, because all of a sudden now it's no longer academic, it's visceral. And I think it's not just good for the way we treat these kinds of situations, it's good for young men to actually see the ramifications of it. Because when they're in the heat of the moment, they're thinking whatever they're thinking, and I'm the alpha man, and all of a sudden now in the back of their mind is, hey, this is ugly, and the results are ugly. And we all agree with that. I think where we have a disagreement is in how Bob Stoops handled it back then. Because back then, he thought like a coach thinks, which is, I promised the parents of this kid, Joe Mixon, that I would treat him like my own son. The ugly incident happened, it was ugly. Is it something that can be come back from? Stoops thought yes, because this was a guy that was a good kid in Stoops' mind who made a bad mistake. He wasn't a bad kid who did something you would expect. He didn't just sit him out for a year. He made him go through a long series of steps with zero margin for error for Mixon and made him earn his way back. And Mixon's a better young man for it. And that's what we're talking about. Some things you can't come back from. But I think now, and this is what Stoops said, today because of this Mixon video, the Rice video, Baylor, Greg Hardy, etc., now the margin for error for who gets a second chance and who doesn't has changed. And that's a good thing in this way. If it prevents it from happening, if somebody thinks twice before doing it again, then I'm down for it.
I don't even want to add anything to that. I think that was just right.
So well said. And we so appreciate your perspective and your honesty for opening up here, because it matters for this discussion. So thank you. Merry Christmas, Trevor.
You too.
Happy New Year. We will see you next week. Coming up next, the bad man has the Packers rolling, but will he roll to another MVP? The guys will tell you that after the break. With the playoffs looking like they were out of reach for the Packers, Aaron Rodgers proclaimed the team could run the table, and so far they have, winning 4 straight games. Rodgers backing it up. Recent success has boosted not only his team to the 6th seed in the current playoff picture, but his MVP hopes as well. Just 2 weeks ago, ESPN.com's poll had Rodgers with the 10th most MVP votes. Now he has shot up to 5th most on the list. Stephen A., do you agree Rodgers is a top 5 MVP candidate?
Well, I easily agree with that, and I don't think he should be at number 5, but I don't think he should be above the top 3. I mean, when I think about the top 3, I'm thinking about Tom Brady, okay, and I'm thinking about Ezekiel Elliott. They come to mind immediately.
Brady,
okay,
laughable.
We can debate about Dak Prescott. We can debate about Derek Carr. Right, but Aaron Rodgers is at 3 or 4, but Ezekiel Elliott and Tom Brady definitely come before. Aaron Rodgers has been sensational, but there was like a 4 to 5 week gap there where they struggled. He's been absolutely sensational ever since. He's been better than average all consistently, even when he was on his downside. But that 4 to 5 week gap hurt him. I think that you got Tom Brady. I think you got Ezekiel Elliott. You want to debate Aaron Rodgers at 3 or 4, ahead or behind Derek Carr. I'm open for that discussion. But he does not deserve to be number 1, but he does not also deserve to be number 5.
Allow me to use the Socratic method on...
Socratic? I'm sorry,
yes,
Socratic?
on the both of you.
So
Socratic? This method of inquiry. Let me ask
like
you.
as in
I will demonstrate.
Socrates?
Yes.
Make sure you
I
let
will
me know what
demonstrate.
Socratic
yes,
means.
well, you will see. Let me ask you this. Who do you two think should be number 1 in the MVP voting at the moment?
Tom Brady.
You both think Tom Brady?
Tom Brady.
Yes.
Okay. Would you agree that Tom Brady has more talent and a better coach around him than Aaron Rodgers?
More talent?
Aaron Rodgers with no secondary, banged up and diminished receivers, and no
clutch.
running game. I'm not asking that.
Okay,
I'm asking,
sorry,
let's
what's your
confine it to the
question?
question. Does Tom Brady have a better coach and more talent around him on his team than Aaron Rodgers?
He has a better coach.
Yes or no? Does he have more talent?
I don't know.
You say yes. Okay.
I say yes.
Now
It's
let me ask you this.
questionable, but I say yes.
If you therefore say Tom Brady is better, what you are saying is necessarily that it can't be so close between them that Aaron Rodgers, extra 4 games played doesn't have significant value.
Yeah, 4 bad games.
Now let me show you the numbers. Here is just the last 10 games Aaron Rodgers played, which line up perfectly with the 10 games Tom Brady has played. Let's see how they've done compared to one another. Total QBR, Brady's in a slight lead. Passing yards per game, Brady, slight lead. Touchdown to interception ratio, again, Brady slightly, but this is all very close. And completion percentage, Brady over the last 10 games with a better coach and more talent has a very marginal advantage on a per game basis over Aaron Rodgers. And you think he should win MVP, but Aaron Rodgers has 4 games more value than Tom Brady. Drop the mic. That conversation is over.
Better talent, Chris Hogan.
I'm going to tell you why we don't drop the mic. Because once again, Mr. Beetlejuice himself is going by numbers instead of watching the games. And let me tell you something right now. Here's the deal.
You go ask Weezy about that one.
I'm going to ask him. Listen, man, George Jefferson, I'm proud. I'm almost 50. I'm proud of it. I'm trying to tell you right now. I wish I could go ball. But Weezy's coming. George Jefferson, I'll do Chicken George if you want me to. Don't bother me. Here's the deal, man. When you look at Aaron Rodgers, I don't like going against that bad man. That's a bad brother. I get it. But what you're ignoring and what you're not taking into account with those odds of yours is the fact that Aaron Rodgers has had to try to compensate for an awful defense at one point this year. So he's out there slinging the football all over the place. He's taking chances, and his numbers at times may have been better because he's had to do more. When you look at Tom Brady, obviously it's within the flow of the offense. You look at the efficiency, the 22 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions, a QBR of 89, et cetera, which is about 17 points higher than Aaron Rodgers. We can look at those numbers, but what I am saying to you is that I told you this from day one. When I looked at Tom Brady, 11-1, running the table, being as efficient as he is. I'm telling you right now, we sat on this show and debated. We said Aaron Rodgers. We said Aaron Rodgers. I said he's going to be 11. I said we said Aaron Rodgers. We debated this. Aaron Rodgers is going to be fine. But there was a point in time with 3 or 4 weeks we were debating what we were seeing from Aaron Rodgers because he didn't seem like it was. We blamed Randall Cobb. We blamed Jordy Nelson. We blamed these guys. But that's what it is.
No, you're negating the first 4 games. Even if you don't think they were particularly good, they didn't hold zero value. He started at quarterback and won some of them in the NFL. These numbers are extremely close. Tom Brady over the last 10 games
are close.
Is marginally better than Aaron Rodgers. When you normalize for the teams they're on, actually, Aaron Rodgers may be having a better last 10 games than Tom Brady, and that doesn't include the first 4 games where Tom Brady had precisely zero value. There is simply no way to argue that Brady has more value than Aaron Rodgers this year.
You dropped your mic, I'll drop mine.
Yeah.
I actually spoke to Aaron Rodgers a few days ago, and Aaron Rodgers says if Tom Brady wins the MVP, he has no problem with it.
Well, that means that Tom Brady deserves MVP.
It does carry a little bit of weight. It does carry a little bit of weight. It certainly does.
I love it.
One guy played 4 more games.
He's so emotional.
It's not everything. It's not everything, but it does say something.
Aaron, let me handle this argument for you from now on. Don't be giving away the
story. Let's go from the greatest coach in football, Bill Belichick, to the greatest college football coach. So this week we saw several college football stars like Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette announce they wouldn't be playing in their bowl game so they can prepare for the NFL draft. This prompted Alabama head coach Nick Saban, Stephen A's favorite, to speak out against the new playoff format, saying it takes the value out of the smaller bowl games. Take a listen.
You're going to diminish the importance of other bowl games in college football, all right, which has happened. That has happened. All anybody talks about is the playoffs. All right, we have a whole bunch of other bowl games that, people don't think are all that important. So if you don't think it's important, all of a sudden some players don't think it's important. So you can't really blame the players. We created this.
Oh, Max, you relaxed now?
Totally relaxed.
Okay, ready to move on.
Having won the argument by such a margin.
Okay,
Glad
stay
you think so.
focused. Is Nick Saban right here?
He is exactly right. When it comes to the bowls versus a national title game or a playoff, it's a zero-sum game. Either you can have one or you can have the other. Once you have a national title game and a playoff, what that necessarily means is you have devalued the bowls. If you don't have the national title game and a playoff, then the bowls have greater value. There's no way around that equation. And so the question becomes, what do you care about more? You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You eat the cake, it's gone. You can't have both. So what do you value more? I value, although I see the value in the bowl system the way it used to be, I like that, it was fun. I don't think all sports has to be homogenous. It can be asymmetrical, it's okay. But if you ask me what I prefer a playoff. But I realize I have to give something up to get it.
Mm-hmm.
I love me some Nick Saban.
Yep.
I love the accountability that he brings to the equation. I think it's great for kids to have that because it prepares them for life beyond the sport of football and beyond college. So I'm not only just a fan of Nick Saban, I'm an admirer.
Mm-hmm.
Having said all of that, it doesn't mean that he does not come across at times as being a bit hypocritical. And I think that's the thing to peel from this equation. Max is absolutely right when he says that Nick Saban is right. He's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But how the hell are you going to sit up there and try to act like playoffs are an impediment where something that highlights the importance of actually winning doesn't matter when all you do is win. And oh, by the way, because you win, you're the $7 million a year man as the coach at Alabama who can do anything that he basically wants to do. If everybody could be a Nick Saban, then you would have that argument. But the fact is they can't. That's why Alabama is Alabama, not just the football, but the institution, the facilities that are available to them that everybody doesn't have.
They can't both matter. They can't both bowls and the playoff can't both matter.
And it shows you that he's genuine in his position because you're right. This system favors him. The bowls favor everyone else.
I get your point, but it's just...
What I'm saying to you, he could say that, but he's benefiting from it because when you try to come across as if all the bowls shouldn't matter and the priority shouldn't be on defining a definitive winner, then you're basically ignoring the benefits that you receive from being the winner that you are.
But that's why he's credible because the playoff benefits Nick Saban because he's the one who's going to win.
Of course,
right?
But the smaller coach is trying to get to a bowl. It does.
And when he defends the bowl system, what he's saying is in spite of the fact that this is in my best interest.
Right.
I like the
But
tradition
wait a
of the
minute.
bowls.
But you also have to remember where your point might be a touch inaccurate in this regard is that even without the playoff system, when you build a national power in the preseason polls, who's going to be number one?
Alabama.
Who's going to be at the top? There you go. So either way, he benefits.
But now they just shut everyone up because they actually went on the field.
It's kind of perfect. To get something, you have to give up something. And here we're giving up the bowls with the playoff. Coming up next, George Karl with some strong words for Carmelo Anthony. Stephen A. will dive into all of that next. You don't want to miss it. His final take.
First Take is presented by Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
You are so disrespectful.
He is going to fall off a cliff.
Shut the hell up.
That's not even close to my best.
They're wrong. And I don't give a damn that they agree with me or not.
It's that time of the show. Final take. This just in. Stephen A. Smith, always provocative. The NBA, his specialty. Stephen A., the floor is yours, uninterrupted.
Let me get this out of the way. Let's get this straight. Coaches have the right to criticize. They have the right to dissect your game, your strengths and weaknesses. They even have a right to recognize you as a liability instead of an asset, publicly if necessary, so long as they stick to what's taking place on the court. And it's in the best interest of your team, not yourself. Which brings me to this point. When a coach ventures off course, per se, into the land of the personal, acting like they know things they simply don't, it's bad. When they're willing to be bad publicly, that's even worse. But when they profit off of it in the process, using what they surely must recognize as a vivid personal moment in one's life completely averse to public consumption and editorializing, then you've crossed the damn line. And this is exactly what former Denver Nuggets coach, my colleague here at ESPN, Coach George Karl, did to his former star Carmelo Anthony, among others. It's bad enough that Karl went on the record to call Melo, quote, a user of people. Intimated that he was too selfish to ever change. But then to go as far as to say that Melo and former teammate Kenyon Martin, by the way, carried two big burdens, all that money and no father to show them how to act like a man. I mean, damn. Even Phil Jackson and his Benedict Arnold self didn't go that far in raking Kobe Bryant over in his book back in the day. It's times like this when we need to sit back and empathize with players, if for no other reason, because of money. Melo isn't perfect. There are plenty of things he could have done better in his life and career, and we understand that. But whether his father was in his life or not is not his issue, nor anybody's damn business. And who says that was even a problem when he's had big brothers, dear friends, and a multitude of father figures, none of which was Karl, evidently, who pretended to be just that. Melo deserved better from George Karl. Most athletes deserve better from their coach. The fact that Melo didn't get this from Karl shows why Karl isn't a coach anymore, and why he might never be again.
I told you he'd bring it, people. To see all of our final takes and to chime in on the convo, head to First Take's Twitter and Facebook page. They live there. We'd love to have your thoughts. Tomorrow, we're going to react to Thursday Night Football, a big one for the Giants and Eagles, and obviously get you set. A big weekend in the NFL, plenty of playoff implications on the line, and of course, we want everybody to enjoy, you know what it is, Max. It's their Friday Eve. They might have some holiday shopping still need to do.
Friday Eve will be great if the Giants win.
Oh, and
Otherwise, it's
also,
ruined.
January 3rd, we move to ESPN. Stay tuned for that. See you all tomorrow. Have a great day.